Attention dissolves, Brooklyn into two-dimensional space, Oakland into pig-think frequency, demolition into elevator love triangle, symbolism into punk post-appliance, foraging into withdrawal from public action, voracious coddling into confidants anonymous, storied fate into shrubbery lashings, backlash into dispassionate textolatry, rummaging into structure, bistro into cheetah, feeling giddy and positively apostatic at the clinic, the perfect little heart-shaped heart beneath 82 in this old used copy of Between the Acts gives affect to my argument for connection within. Child seats man in rear. Flying should feel like it. Cocktail party sheet packing heat. I do diddly recognize your genus next to apples in stereometric space, a pansy kiss glazed with tranquility, fear itself being a limited run. I collaged from a version of sustainable self for money. See electable affinities, our trivia categories tonight. General knowledge, ironic hats, the inflammable, the public's left to unknown, irreducible pets, and pricks on video. She's a pretty little booger. Flying should feel like it. She's got fried looks. I've got a to-do list begging for a million drinks. The Tartar and the Venetian contend in a stupor of disquiet above the bitched-out illusion in which, along with a green slim vase, I am constantly hiding my torso in front of our bloodshot field of vision. Must be carried out of this overpriced vessel and flown with innocuous fervor at noise's wrecked bounty. Sketch of a neglected cinema. Who need be anyway reshot but the local tableau of desperate vanguards and their unspoken armies of flight, cruising. When? Those blue cats. Told to never hear a word. The dish awakens. I am not inferno, no matter how aptly uncharacterized by stranger and estranged alike, my brooding bent towards seeing, forcing an issue out of perceptual marginalia of my life, or, more succinctly, my humor. By now I am forced to take this surface seriously. Skin, minor deterioration, Latin pig fucker astride a multi-channel slint of futures. I garble the rhetorical aspects of sensibility or silence them all together as occasion implicitly demands to give my child a chance to unfix all she's told. I may not be doing that. Total retreat seems inevitable for a parsec. Elegance was a factor at one point, havoc in black tights firing plasma circles at your standard invasion. I've not met an alien, or at least every being I've encountered has been recognizable on one level. Who doesn't, for instance, take their aura of citizenry for a stroll in some granite forest, some activating an emphasis on arbitrary, which we of course don't deal in here, mind you, unless by merit of reflection, i.e. I know I'm in the bacon. I don't have to have it shown back to me. I want to eat and be eaten. There's no particular mystery in that sense. The generic, rambling, passé mysteries of space, time, friendship, filthy rumination, and little curvy bends in the air when the funeral arrangements are being made in two broken languages and you haven't slept because you're heavier than sleep for extended lack of it. That's what I'm eliminating thought to handle. Blank is blank is blank is blank. To these scores and assumptions and intigatas did not command. I bet against my own aloof relations with family, society, labor, and intellect. I've mostly suppressed the desire to compete with everyone but myself, and we are on a race to lose most innately with kindly hostility to one another. More saving, more moving, a component of trust in hand might be routine for removing dated skin. I'm not most comfortable removing layers of myself at no one's behest. To not pull vision off the impact possible on sphere stick and who's gonna glove your pretty little hand. To not make orders of oneself so rhetorically abject. My sense of my own history with images is such that I consciously developed a willingness to let them go, to not take pictures, though I keep feverishly those gifted to me. I might like the feeling of photo minute looked like something, vanity, to affect, to desperate preservation of a moment that never felt settled or even moment-like. I've kept hold of some shots and now let fly an archive online of pics other peeps put up that has very little to do with me. This is a PG bar. The tender does not approve of our vulgarity. Studying overload for teachability feels a little too narrow. The computer, not the quesadilla, told me about a moment wherein my father, talking to an old friend, waxed nostalgic for a moment they cohabited, an extended moment, and a fellow who heard the rap from above got mad and 32 years later related his anger in a comment box as way of saying he couldn't deal with the sadness he perceives in Ted's poetry. Is that a fair judgment of a person based on an overheard remark to a then geographically distant old running buddy about how great they were in their day together? This stuff, I'm sorry, moves too much, is too heavy. You will have to be replaced in order for any of it to get caught. Does the poet improve her lot by working harder to compensate for the minor snuffing of instinct? No.
Yvette Mimieux in Hit Lady. All I remember is she drives a red sports car and wears an ankh around her neck and is instructed by the company to bump off some union bigwig because he's scheduled to testify against a mafioso. So she assumes a new identity and starts dating him, and naturally he falls madly in love with her, not suspecting that this pert blonde sitting on the other side of the pink roses at the fancy restaurant is actually the best assassin in the business. But when the time comes to pull the trigger, she breaks out in a cold sweat and can't go through with it, because all she really wants is to quit the company and marry her struggling artist boyfriend, who's played by Dak Rambo, and who of course has no idea she kills people for a living. So she slips away and puts her silencer in a storage locker at the airport and flies to this picturesque seaside village in Mexico where Dak paints his unsaleable masterpieces. And hoping to make a fresh start, she tells him everything. But it turns out that Dak works with the company too, so he shoots her in the back on the beach and she dies. Today, on the phone with my friend Rebecca, I talked about the past. My wild youth, the gay 70s, so easy to get a blowjob, but little else. The decade-long mismatch with Ira in New York. The last 7 years here in the Midwest. Dust begins to collect as soon as you wipe the cloth across the tabletop. The glue dries, the spine cracks, the faded pages slip out, the book is tossed. I'm surprised how alive my memories are in me. From odd transient details, the fake sunny side up egg placed as practical joke on a sizzling summer sidewalk, how I'd savored Neckos, those candy wafers that came in a roll like quarters, as if receiving communion, letting each color slowly dissolve on my penitent tongue. To deeply ingrained disappointments, friends turned at adversaries by their inability to change, lovers by their refusal to open up. He's emotionally dead, you say. She's hopeless and malignant. How they resent your light, yet try to keep their hooks in you. Why do low moments have more staying power than happy ones, some downright refusing, though the theater is dark, to vacate the stage? Again and again, the day of the breakup comes to mind, how we sat and faced each other on the red couch, how he lied to me and to himself, cried and touched my arm as he left, as if petting something precious for the last time. Why cling to the sadness of that single moment rather than the months of anticipation and excitement of making love while the mood lamp on the dresser morphed from red to violet to blue? I used to think that time was linear, a road that stretched and disappeared into the future, and that if I walked that road, I'd get farther and farther away from everything that had ever caused me pain. The name-calling and bullying on playgrounds, the chain-link prisons of suburbia, the awareness of queerness and the retreat inward, a different kind of prison, the constant terror of being exposed, moonlight in Temecula. Dorland Mountain Arts Colony, located at the foothills of Palomar Mountain in Southern California, was destroyed by a wildfire on May 2nd, 2004. All of the buildings on the 300-acre nature preserve were reduced to ash and rubble. 4 months after the car accident, and 2 before the end of the decadent 70s, I find myself the first official resident at this rustic artist colony. I hobble around on one crutch, afraid of encountering rattlesnakes or bobcats on the dirt paths. At night, I drink scotch in my hillside cabin. Isolated, inarticulate with grief, no poems are possible. Lost without electricity, I wrestle with the wood-burning stove. Helpless to light the kerosene lamp, I read Remains of Elmet by a candle's flutterings. 96-year-old Mrs. Dorland is still vain about her legs. I can understand that now. She leaves a note in my mailbox inviting me to Thanksgiving dinner. Elizabeth makes apple chutney with Alice B. Toklas's recipe. I bring a bottle of white wine. Tipsy, hobbling back in the dark, I stop to admire the stars. My crutch flies out from under me and I fall flat on my back. Alone in the cabin, I wake in the middle of the night to moonlight so bright you could read a book by it. Rachel has been dead almost 5 months. I look out at the moonlit hillside, at a future burned down to the ground. The dead. The patter of rain on the roof, a late night comfort. The knife in the back, removed and blessed, absorbed by the lake. The faces in the locket, thumbnail guardians, cut to fit hearts. When you make your transition, a psychic said, Byron will be there, waiting. Don't forget it. May he be the first to greet me, a running leap into my arms. Then Rachel, Tim, Mom, and Jim. The dead emerge from the flicker of black and white footage, grainy Hollywood fog. Anne, ever patient for her words to be heard. Jimmy, prisoner in mind, in body, yet as poet free. Generous, self-effacing Joe. Even Bob, his lungs full of forgiveness. Even Sylvia and Ted, reconciled and working closely with Nicholas, new to this. Dara, too, recently arrived, all but blind painter, lonely and depressed. What mixed feelings has death stirred up in me? And now Lola at 8 months, and Louise in her late 90s. Behind them, shadowy, out of focus, the figures of grandparents and teachers, acquaintances and friends, strangers drawn to and crowding the frame, like extras aching for more screen time. Tonight, lulled by gentle rain, I'll claim as many as I can name.